We love a good demo, and this one promises to be great. Here to bring us through container-based development with Visual Studio Code, please welcome Christoph Marty. Christoph, it's so great to get a chance to talk to you. How are you?
Doing great. Thanks, Myra. Well, imagine joining a new project and trying out some new development tool or technology stack. Now, one of the first hurdles is usually that you need to install one or several tools on your local machine just to get started with the most basic Hello World example. Today, many projects use Docker images for automated and reproducible deployments. Now imagine using Docker images to also codify the development setup and then create containers for development from these. This is what development containers are about. And now let me show you what this looks like in a short demo. So first of all, you need the remote containers extension installed in VS Code and Docker on your system. And for the demo, we're going to look at a simple Azure function that just returns a list of products. Now, if you wanted to run and debug that locally, we'd have to install the Azure Functions tools. But instead of doing that, we'll now add the dev container configuration. I'm going through this green remote indicator here in the lower left and add the development container configuration for Azure Functions and Node. This adds two files to my workspace. The main configuration file is the dev container JSON that comes with a lot of options. Among others, you can list the extensions you want to have installed in the container. And this also references the Docker file, which in this case just pulls in the Azure Functions base image that we want to work from. With that in place, I can now reopen this folder in a container. The window reloads. The container is being built, and after a short time, we'll see the same files again. But now we're looking at the files from within the container because the local folder is mounted inside the container, and only the VS Code window is still local. Everything else runs inside the container. So we also see the Azure Functions extension is now installed. And when we check on the command line, we see the Azure Functions CLI is now available. So going back to our Azure function and the sample, we can now set the breakpoint, and then we can launch the Azure function and actually a very simple HTML front end using the same launch configuration as we would if we ran this locally. See at the bottom, the Azure function being started. And the first notification telling us the Azure function is now listening on its port. And shortly after that, we'll see the port 3000 being listened on by the front end. I will now preview that in the integrated browser. And that's loading the front end. The front end will then trigger the back end. Taking a little longer than usual here. And there we are loading, and we hit the breakpoint in the Azure function. And now we can debug the function as we normally would. Like we can inspect local variables, can step in or step over functions just as we know it. And this is what dev containers is about and can do for you.
Thanks for sharing that with us, Christoph. I have some questions for you. So what if I want to use a different technology stack?
Yes, so we've briefly seen it. There's a whole list of configurations included for various technology stacks, and you can choose one of these and just use that and modify to meet your needs. Or you can start from scratch and maybe use your own Docker file if you have one and add a dev container JSON to it.
And is one of the key benefits that we can keep our development tools separate from our local machine?
Yes, and that actually becomes particularly important when you have various projects which require different versions of the same tools. With dev containers, each project can have its own installation of development tools. Another major benefit is that you can easily share your development setup with your team by checking in the dev container configuration. Also imagine how much easier it gets to onboard new members to the team when all they need is the remote containers extension in VS Code and Docker installed.
That's great. And what are some of the recent improvements and what can we expect in the future?
Well, recently the focus has been on replicating the same level of support for configuration in GitHub code spaces. Code spaces will come with full support for the dev container configuration that we've been looking at here. And that will make it easy to transition between running dev containers locally and in the cloud. And then one popular request for remote containers is to improve its support for running dev containers on SSH servers. So we're also looking forward to improving that.
Okay, and my last question here, what is the easiest way to try and evaluate dev containers?
Yes, well, definitely go and install the remote containers extension in VS Code. That will also help you with the installation of Docker if you don't have that already. And then just open one of our sample repositories. You'll find the corresponding command when you click on that green remote indicator we've seen in the demo. You get that once the extension is installed.
All right, to learn more, be sure to visit the link on the screen. Thanks so much for joining us, Christoph.